Hey everybody, this is Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff, and this is the LG V20. I know that we are moving into Mobile World Congress, and we're going to have a lot of phones that we're going to be seeing released, including the LG G6. But the LG V20 is a fantastic phone, and I'd be doing a huge disservice to this phone if I did not at least take a look at it. It got put on the back burner. Sometimes that happens, but I want to take a look at it now and say, what is it about this phone that stands out, and is it any good? First off, I know you're all jealous of my Stormtrooper skin that I have here. This is Slick Wraps. This is not a paid promotion or anything. I just thought this looked really awesome. So first, I want to talk about what sets this device apart. And basically, I call this phone the don't tell me what to do phone. So I think the thing that sticks out the most about this phone is the design of it. It is a pretty much all metal body design except for the top and on the bottom. This is polycarbonate. It helps to make this very damage resistant. But this back cover is removable. Finally, we have a metal phone and you can actually remove the back cover. So actually, you can have phones that have the back cover removable and have them be made out of premium metal materials at the same time. And look at that! What's under there? Oh yeah, look, it's a battery. Ah, look, and I can actually remove said battery. Cough, note 7. Just being able to remove the battery would have made it so much easier for Samsung. So if you're somebody in this day and age who really needs to have an extra battery on the go, you've got this. And if you're somebody who's not going to be using the removable battery, you do have Quick Charge 3.0 on the bottom too. 3200 milliamp hour battery, not the biggest, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the fact is here that you can remove it. And for you road warriors out there, this is a fantastic option. Thank you, LG, for having one phone out there that keeps this. And thank you for not making this the mess of the LG G5. This is actually implemented really, really well. Another thing that sticks out about this phone is that we have an SD card slot underneath that battery compartment. Now with the likes of the Google Pixel and iPhones, we don't have SD card slots, and this is a content creator's phone, a multimedia phone. With a phone like that, you really must have an SD card slot. So yay, LG did bring back the SD card slot. That's going to make a lot of people very, very happy. It does not support adaptable storage. It looks like LG decided not to implement that. It seems to cause more trouble than it's worth anyway. And otherwise, you have 64 gigabytes of onboard storage for installing apps. Next, what's awesome are the wide-angle cameras that we have both on the front and also on the back. So you can take wide-angle selfies and you can also take really nice wide-angle portraits or landscape photos, whatever is your fancy. You can get pretty cool effects. Though admittedly, I don't use the wide-angle camera very much on the back because it is not as high of quality as the standard camera. There is a lot of degradation in quality, especially when you're zooming in, but still having that ability is really nice in the content creator realm. So even though the camera hardware sticks out and we've got pretty decent cameras on here, 16 megapixel for the standard camera versus the 8 megapixel for the wide-angle camera, what really stands out is the camera's software. So the magic for these cameras happens underneath the manual modes. We've got the manual mode for photos and also for video. Underneath the manual mode for photos, you can see that we've got a little bit of a histogram. You can control for the white balance. You can control your focus. You even have focus peaking to make sure everything is nice and in focus in the shot. You've got exposure compensation. You can control for your ISO. You can control for the shutter speed. You can keep the shutter open for all the way up to 30 seconds. Of course, you're going to need a tripod for something like that, but this is just excellent. And this works between both the wide camera and also the standard camera. You can shoot in RAW as well for that extra bit of control. Then underneath manual for videos, what's really impressive for me is that they've given you the ability to choose your bit rate. So you can choose high, medium, and low. You can control for your frame rates depending on your resolution. And you can shoot all the way up to Ultra HD 4K while being able to control that bit rate. So that's amazing. And don't forget you have all those manual controls as well. You can control for your white balance, the autofocus, exposure compensation, ISO, and your shutter speeds. And what's also really awesome for the manual controls underneath video is that you can mess around with the audio as well, being able to control gain, low cut filter, and a limiter. Plus you can mess around with microphone directivity. And a wind noise filter. This is just so ridiculously full of features. The common person is probably going to hang around in auto mode, but for those who really want to get a stylized shot, you can do that. Heck, they even give you an option for Full HD 21:9 cinema, so they really want you to use this. So with controls like this for both camera and for video, obviously you can get really great results with this. And of course, for this phone, there are auto modes as well for both photo and for video. For auto picture mode, the pictures look pretty nice. I think for most people that they're going to be just fine with it. I think images look a bit oversaturated for my taste. And I noticed that even when using HDR, you still have a little bit of problem with the highlights being overblown. So use manual mode. And also for video, use manual mode too. But for auto mode, I think that the video quality looks pretty good.
Recording a video sample. Let's try something, hoping that will yield a nicer result.
One thing about this phone that I feel that LG has really hit it out of the park with is adding 3 AOP microphones. That's acoustic overload point microphones. So you can use this, go out to a concert or go out to a noisy environment, and you're not going to get all that terrible audio clipping. This can handle some pretty loud audio without getting all distorted and clipping. So not only can you record high quality audio and video, but LG also thought to put a high quality audio recorder app as well. So you can go out to concerts or you can make yourself a little demo tape. Normally, I'm not able to use smartphones to record audio. The phones often have a lot of trouble with higher frequencies or really loud music, and the audio will sound garbled, terrible, a lot of distortion. This does really well though, and I was able to make a little bit of an example of what you can do with this. Basically, I had one track and was able to record many tracks over and over and over again to get a result with Carol of the Bells. Take a look at how this sounds.
Sweet silver bells all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing the cheer to young and old. Me and the bold teens coming home. Now is the song, wisdom of we all family. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, happy part, raising the sound of the day, telling tales. Giving the ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here.
Another feature that really sticks out and sets this phone apart is the Quad DAC that's inside this thing. Now, I am not an audiophile by any means, but I really do love and appreciate music. So not only can you record really high quality audio with this thing, you can also play back really high quality audio with this Quad DAC. And from my testing, just testing with the B&O earbuds that was included with this, when you have the DAC turned on, you really can tell a difference of a much broader soundstage. The audio is rich, it's clean, great signal to noise ratio. And if you have headphones that are very high impedance, this thing also has an amplifier that can really drive those high impedance headphones. And it's really interesting because LG has designed this thing to have 3 separate modes. So if you plug in just normal headphones that are low impedance, it'll give you the normal audio mode. Then if you plug in something external, you'll have auxiliary mode, and then you've got the high impedance mode for headphones that need to really be driven. So it's going to change its power output depending on what type of audio equipment is attached to this thing. And I think that that's really intelligent for power saving reasons, and also because obviously you don't want to be pushing a lot of power to little tiny earbuds that don't need it. One thing to note is that there are 2 versions of this phone. You've got the Korean model, the South Korean model, where it's got the B&O Play audio tuning on it. This is the US version from T-Mobile that has the audio tuning done by LG. And from what I understand, T-Mobile was allowing people to get the B&O earphones for a limited time, just like with the Korean model. But this is not the Korean model. So in terms of how this sounds, if you want this phone and you're an audiophile, I recommend taking your earphones, going and playing with this in the store, running a couple of your own benchmarks and seeing how you like it. Check this out for yourself. I like how this sounds, but it's completely up to taste, and I think that it's a really good high quality audio option. So now moving on to the last 2 things that make this phone stick out, and then we're going to move on to talking about actually how good this phone is, in terms of performance. This came with Android 7.0 Nougat right out of the box. It was the first phone that was released with Nougat, so it's not like you're going to have to wait like all the other phones out there to get Nougat. So that's awesome. LG took this seriously to make sure that this is the most powerful phone present. And we've got kind of a gimmick here at the top, which is kind of cool. You've got the secondary display, just like we did with the V10. Now, I don't see really any true advantage to this. I feel like I can access a lot of things a lot easier just doing them normally. But it's really nice that when I get a notification, it doesn't show over half of my display. Instead, you'll see the notification up here. You're not bothered by it at all. That's probably the one true advantage. Also, with this dual display, you've got some camera control, so they're able to expand the interface of this camera because we have this little sidebar here. Otherwise, it exists here for recent apps and app shortcuts. It gives you the time when the display is off. I believe you can still use it when it's off as well, so you have access to some shortcuts. Like right there, I've just turned on the flashlight. So, same stuff as last year. You've got bigger characters as far as I can tell from the V10 of last year. And at least with my model, I don't have the light bleeding that I had last year, but there are variations galore. Some people are having pretty bad light bleeding with the secondary display once you go into a darker environment. Mine looks just fine. So not all of them are bad. It just depends. Okay, so we just talked about all the really nifty things that this device has that sets it apart, but in day-to-day use, is this any good just as a smartphone? The first thing that I want to talk about is the user experience. Now, this has a lot of great features. It's a really great phone in that respect, but the skin the LG has on here is a no-go. Yes, we've got Nougat on here, but I really do not like what LG has done with the skin. I've come from the Google Pixel, and that phone is very fast, very snappy, not a hitch. And one of the things that I notice about the user interface here with this skin is that the launcher is not very responsive. At times it feels kind of sluggish and behind what Google has with the Google Pixel, or even some other Android phones like with the OnePlus 3T. There is a difference here, and it does bog down the feeling of the performance. So my recommendation is to get a different launcher. LG has a couple different launcher options, and one of them is actually buggy. I can't even move the icons around on the home screen because they don't move. So I do not recommend what LG has here. Get yourself a different launcher, maybe even the Google launcher, and then it feels a lot more snappy and a lot more responsive. While you're at it, get yourself a different keyboard. I don't really care for LG's keyboard, but the keyboard that I usually like to use is SwiftKey. So just doing that, getting rid of LG's launcher and adding SwiftKey, you've got a much better experience. But when you go and you add a different launcher, you still have the rest of LG's theming to deal with, and I've not been so keen on that flat look with that mint green. What's nice though is that you can go and add a different theme. So inbuilt right into LG's skin, you can just pick a different theme. I pick black, bold, very simple. It essentially turns everything into a dark theme, so I don't have to deal with that weird color scheme that LG had before. Already, it looks much better with this black theme. So these are some very simple optimizations. Get a different launcher, get a different keyboard, change the theme. Already, we're doing a lot better. Now, as for performance, it is generally what you would expect from a Snapdragon 820 device. It is a powerful flagship. So in my testing, I found that it's not too far behind the Google Pixel for opening app speeds, so it's nice and quick for opening applications. And it pretty much matches my Google Pixel's app switching speed, so you can switch between applications without a hitch. Now, as for RAM management, it's got 4 gigabytes of RAM. And I could get a max of 9 applications open. This is not including intensive applications like games. Once I started opening more intensive applications like games, I saw that it started to be pretty aggressive in shutting down applications. I feel LG is doing this to try to strike that balance between performance and battery life. So I found the RAM management to be a bit more aggressive than I would like, but it seems to be really on par with something like the Galaxy S7. Although I did see with my Google Pixel that I could get a lot more apps open, including intensive ones like games and other varied apps, and they did not shut down. So that's something to keep in mind. It's just okay with the RAM management. Now for gameplay and sustained performance, in general, gameplay looks really nice. It can really play anything that you throw at it, but I did notice that it has some issues with thermal throttling that kick in fairly quickly, and depending on the game that's going to look different, but I see that there's some varied frame rates. Some things start to look pretty choppy, where right at the beginning it's nice and smooth, just say at 60 frames per second, and very soon after you don't get those peak frame rates anymore. I also noticed that with benchmarks too. So with GFX benchmark, for example, running the Manhattan battery test, you can see that very quickly the frame rate starts to decline. or comparing it to, again, something like my Google Pixel, I see that it does really very well. The Google Pixel is a very good sustained performer. So again, I think that LG is deciding to strike a balance between performance and battery life. I also notice when playing games that this device can get quite toasty. So it's a very powerful device. It generally does very well. But keep in mind that I do see some issues with sustained performance. So if you're somebody who's a really long-term gamer with mobile games, maybe this isn't the best option for you. But otherwise, I've had no other issues with general performance. So I should probably mention that I have not had any boot looping issues with this device, none that I have seen yet. Let me know if you've encountered anything like that. Even with the V10 and with several LG devices, for whatever reason, I haven't fully looked into it. LG devices seem to be very susceptible to this boot looping issue. I have not experienced that with my V20. Let me know if that's happened for you, but as of several months with this thing, I haven't had a problem. How about the design of this phone? This is a very large phone. You can see this is my iPhone 7 Plus right here. You can see that they are roughly the same size. Now, like I showed in the beginning, this has the awesome design of being able to pull off this metal back cover. But when looking at this phone, it's not one that instantly catches attention, unfortunately. To the audience that's really interested in this phone, they're probably not going to care. But the design feels very uninspired. There's nothing about it that really sticks out. I do like that it's nice and thin. It's got a really nice, beautiful display. But when looking at the likes of the Galaxy S7 Edge and the Galaxy S7 and plenty of other phones out there, even the iPhones, this really is not very eye-catching. That's one of the reasons I wanted to install a skin on it, because even I was a bit bored by the appearance of this phone. I like it better now. It looks really quite cool now that I have this Stormtrooper skin on this thing. So when walking through a phone store, you're pretty likely to pass this poor guy by, not even giving it a second look. And if you do, the interface is pretty terrible. Come on, LG, you can do better than this. So now talking a little bit about this display. This display is awesome. It is a 5.7 IPS LCD display with a Quad HD resolution. This thing is so incredibly sharp that it looks like printed paper. But when going and looking at the calibration of this display, this is not a color accurate display. It is a wide gamut display like the ones LG has been using before. So it's particularly wide in the reds and in the greens. And unfortunately, this has a really cool tone to it. So the white point is very, very cool. That's something that I really do not prefer. And unfortunately, they don't give you any setting to control for a color accurate mode or to control for the white point. So what you get here is what you get. But most people are really going to like this display and will be just fine with the colors. What is nice though is that LG uses panels that have really great contrast ratio. So this has really nice inky blacks. So this display has its pluses and its minuses. It's not my favorite one, but it is a really nice one. It also gets very, very bright. Now I have seen people on the interwebs going underneath the accessibility options and selecting the screen color adjustment and saying, oh, this calibrates the display. No, it doesn't. Don't use that. That's for people who have color blindness, like red-green color blindness, for example. Of course, you've got this little slider here that lets you mess around with the colors, but this is not going to yield any good option. At what point is that going to look right to you? At least I hope it doesn't. And you can even see on my CIE chart, this is supposed to be green right here. That ain't green. So no, this color setting here is not a means of calibrating your display. It's for color blindness. Don't use it. Now the last thing that I want to talk about is battery life. Is battery life any good? Now, if you have a phone that has all these awesome features, but the battery just doesn't last, that's not going to help you at all, no matter how fast this charges. A thing this does have going for it, though, is that you can remove the back cover and have many batteries that you can bring with you on the go. But in all honesty, what person is going to go and purchase a lot of external batteries? Not many. So this is a 3200 milliamp hour battery. That is not large. That is not a small battery, but I would have expected it to be bigger. I can get through a day on this device. I can get about 5 hours average of on-screen time, and that's great. But as soon as you start using the DAC, as soon as you start using the camera, as soon as you start playing intensive games, for example, the battery life goes down very, very quickly. So if I'm just using this for a mobile office, it does just fine during the day. I don't feel like I need to charge it. But as I was using the DAC, wow, that makes the battery plummet. And like I said, that camera definitely makes the battery plummet too, especially when you are filming in 4K. These things should be fairly obvious. Things that are power intensive are going to use a lot of power. So just keep that in mind. This is a phone that if you're going to be doing power intensive things, you're going to need to charge it more than once during the day. If it's just going to be a mobile office, you should be just fine. So battery life is average to good. It just depends on your usage. I've generally been happy with it though. So now for the V20 wrap-up. I hope I've been able to answer the questions for you. What is so special about this phone? What makes it stick out? And is this any good? Definitely, I think this is a really great phone. It has a lot of wonderful features, although unfortunately a lot of them are niche. And because this is a pretty boring looking phone until you jazz it up a little bit, unfortunately I think that people are going to pass it by in the store. But it's powerful, it's quick when you get rid of the terrible launcher that's on here. Great cameras, great features, great for audio files. This is the all-around multimedia package. So this has been Erica, the technology nerd, likes to film stuff. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about the V20. Let me know if you're excited for the G6, and have a good night.